Okay, welcome to the third episode for the construction of the column. In the previous one we have constructed the parameters, and now in this one we shall attach the actions, because without the actions we can actually do nothing. We'll just have a static block. As you can see, all the parameters are constructed, but we cannot access them. Okay, so let's just dive in. It's gonna be a long episode, so prepare yourself, but we shall cover a few stuff. So I think it will be an interesting one for you. So let's start from the tab where we also had the parameters. Now we'll change it to the actions, and now we have move, scale, stretch, polar stretch, which together with the scale I don't often use, rotate, flip, array, and lookup, which is a visibility action that goes along with the visibility parameter over here. But today we shall cover extensively the parameters that go heavily with stretch and maybe move actions. So first of all, let me just build a new parameter to exemplify what I mean. The starting point, click, and then the end point, click, and the third point to finish the construction of the parameter. As you probably saw in the previous episode, it comes with two heads, two visible heads. We can choose from the properties tab from the number of grips to show only one, which will always be the second one, not the starting point but the end point. So be careful how you construct your parameters. Or we can choose to have 0 grips. Now let's go back to the 2 grips altogether. If I want to attach an action, I'm going to the action tab, I'm choosing stretch. Now I must select the parameter, and in this moment it requires to choose which one of the active heads should have the action attached. If I'm going to the left without clicking anything, just going near the head, you see I have a red signaling that tells me that this head will be chosen. If I move to the right already, it signals that the right head should take the action. So I just hit a click anywhere, and now he understands I want this head to take the action. Then I must build an area just like I'm doing a crossover, and imagine in this area by 2 clicks, okay, I have a lot of objects that are to be subjected to the action in itself, and even the parameter in itself. So whatever you find inside this area, partially like the parameter in itself, or partially objects or entire objects are inside the area, those objects will be subjected to the action of the parameter. Okay, that's the basic stuff you must understand. Now let's go back to the column and actually make this one happen. So as I said, this is a 2-story column. This is the base of the column. The column will develop upwards level by level, and the thickness of the foundation will develop downwards. As a rule, we keep the base fixed. Okay, so let's take a first parameter for this stretch, and of course I want to start with level 1, so I must choose the parameter. I'm going close to the second head as shown here with the red mark, hit OK to make it sure that this head will take the action. And now it doesn't matter from down or from up, left or right, I'm creating an area so that when I will move from outside in the model this grip, the first span will stretch and will move all together the rest of the object. So I'm making an area that actually covers the second part of the column and only the top part of the first span, of the first level. Okay, so now this is the dotted rectangle is the area, and after I'm hitting click and establishing the area with a basic crossover from right to left to select everything, I'm choosing the whole objects in this case, and first of all the parameter lev1 in itself, the rest of the parameters that are above in their entirety. From the first level, only the top of the column I'm interested to stretch it, and the rest will follow just as a move. So the stretch actually, if in the area some objects are found in their entirety, will be actually displaced as if we would have used the move action. Okay, and now we're hitting OK. And we've created our first action. Now, normally this object over here, which is the action of the parameter, should be close to the parameter, but because I'm using an older version of AutoCAD, some glitches in the program appears, and sometimes these actions are kind of lost in the drawing, probably close to the base point. And if I want to make sure that this action belongs to this parameter, sometimes I have to look for them graphically here and move them near the parameter, which is a little bit annoying, but I need this because now I want to show you the following thing. When I'm choosing the action in itself, I'm clicking it. So now it shows me the previously chosen area, and with the highlight it actually shows me the objects that are included partially, like these concrete green lines, or those dimensions, partial dimensions, and also the whole objects that are inside the area. What can I tell you about an action? A specific thing is that if we go to the distance multiplier here in the properties tab, we'll see a value of 1. That meaning if I'm going outside the block in the model and I'm actioning by hand on this grip or from the property tables, it will make the stretch movement with a 1-to-1 ratio. Let me show you to you. Close and save. I'm selecting the block. Now the first grip is visible because I've just attached the action, and level 1 parameter also in the property table comes with its defined value, and either I'm pulling the grip upwards, there you go, and the parameter value changed, or more precise, from here I'm just hitting, let's say, 500 centimeters, 5 meters, okay? Now, because the distance multiplier of this parameter was 1, that means if I'm actioning by hand or by a precise value in the table, it will move it with that precise value. So the length of the parameter is 500, just as in table, and the dimension, which in reality represents the height of the first level, is of course 500, because the parameter was constructed, as explained in the second episode, to be the actual height of the column. So 500 value for the parameter matches the 500 value of the actual height of the first level. So going back into the block, if for some reason, there you go, I have to search for the action again, I'm taking this action, click on it, and go to the distance multiplier and hit 0.5, which means half of the value, half of the distance, look what happens. Choosing the block again. So I have the grip that normally should be here at the top of the first level. It still has the designated value 500, but graphically the drawing stretched a little bit different. Remember, the definition comes with a value of 300. I just added 200 more units, but because the distance multiplier was 0.5, that meaning half, the 200 units actually were taken as 100. So the first 300 centimeters plus only half 100 are only displaying half of the stretch I wanted. It's 400. Instead, the parameter itself is shown as the full value I've introduced. So it's not really a proper case to show you this distance multiplier, but I just wanted to start with it for you to understand that we can actually apply multiple elongation values to a parameter. Even if I'm moving it in reality with an, let's say, integer v value, you can actually trick the drawing to follow just a fraction of that stretch. In that case, v divided by 2. So let's go back. I'm going to take the same stretch action and actually make it as before, with a distance of multiplier of 1. The column will behave normally once again, and I will now exemplify with a more practical example. Let's say we shall apply an action to the base of the cross section, as if we want to take this right part along with the elevation of the column and stretch it on X direction back and forth, thus obtaining a new base of the cross section of the column. But in the same time, I want to keep this title of the column to be kept permanently on the half of the length of the base, if I make myself clear with this. So let me just exemplify. By putting an action to the base, hit stretch, choose the parameter, choose the second head, the visible one in the model, the active one, click OK to make it sure that you've chosen this one, and now somewhere in the middle of the distance we're starting to create our area. So I want to take from this corner and developing to the right and upwards. I want to capture the whole elevation of the column. Hit again enter to finish the area, and inside this area I'm choosing whatever I consider I want to either stretch or move all together. So I'm choosing these objects over here, which are comprised of concrete lines, dimensions, objects, text with fields, another whole parameters captured inside, and of course the cross section itself with the base parameter in itself. It will stretch by itself, okay? And for the time being, I'm letting out this title out of this area. Now close and save. I'm choosing the block and I'm showing you by hand what I mean. I'm taking the base grip and I'm stretching manually the column. Okay, so now this part of the column is graphically stretched, but because this object was not included in the action, it remains where it is in the definition. Now let's go back. We leave the column as it is, because you will see in the next minutes what I mean. And let's say now I have to choose to find the action of the base. This is one. If I'm going back to the action and click right click on it, and I choose action select set, I see I have two type of actions I can choose. The new select set means I'm starting all over again to develop the area and what objects should be inside, but I'm pleased with this area that I've made and the objects that are inside. I just want to add a new object, or by contrary, you will see you can get out an object that you no longer desire to be in that area. So I'm hitting modify the active selection set. Now I'm hitting OK. Because I'm hitting OK, it shows me the old area, the old objects inside that area that will be subjected to the action. And as shown here, you can either hit this remove, or actually right here and it already recognizes that I want to remove. Actually, I want to add an object, so this time it's only necessary to click an object that I want to add in the selection. Now, as you see, because this is a text object that it happens to be half outside and half inside the area, it won't matter if I'm only choosing the part that it's inside or outside. I'm just choosing the object in its entirety, okay? And now I'm hitting OK. And going again to the action, click right, action, modify, plus enter. What I wanted to show you is that now it comes also in a highlight, so it means it's added to those objects. From outside, now this text will no longer stay on this part of the column, but will be subjected to the same kind of action. And because it's not a line or a polyline or a stretchable object, but it's a text object, will be kind of moved along with the length of the base. Close the block, save, and there you go. Now it's dragged on the right side, and as I'm dragging the width of the cross section of the column, the text follows one at a distance multiplier of 1, okay? It follows the parameter. But as I said, I want to keep it at the middle. So how can I do that? Well, first of all, I cannot do that by having the same action. Okay, so because I've included that object in the same action of the parameter, it will only go along with the rest of the drawing. But if I want to actually behave differently, I can actually put another action on the same parameter that will activate different parts of the drawing in a different way. That's a cool thing about these parameters. So how can I do that? Well, this time I can do it in both ways, with another stretch action or maybe with a move action. And I will exemplify this time by using the move action, because I don't need actually to stretch this object. I told you it's unstretchable because it's a text. But even if it was a line, let's say, I could still use move just to move it. Or if I'm using another stretch for that line and I want that line to be kept constant, I will stretch it but include it in a whole new area that will include it in its entirety. Okay, I don't know if it's clear. But for this kind of object we shall use the move object. Okay, but before using this new action, we must take into consideration that this text was already included in the first stretch action. So we must first remove it from the stretch action and only then put a new action on it. So hit the stretch action, right click, action, modify, enter, and now we can hit remove, and we're choosing the object. It seems like it was already removed from the action for some reason, but as far as I remember it was included, so let's make it again. Now I'm putting it in the action, right? So now if I'm going to modify, hit again, it's included in the action, and I want to remove it, just type re from remove, hit enter, now hit the object. It's no more highlight. On a highlight, hit enter, and it's outside the action. So we can check it again, right click, action, modify, enter. Yep, it's no more included in the action. Now we can go to the move action, choose the base, the active grip, and pinch the object. Now it belongs. We can check it again, this time with the move action, right click, action, modify. It already goes into the enter mode. It's just for the move action, this kind of type, and it's highlighted. Okay, so now if we give the action a 0.5 distance multiplier, we will hopefully see how it behaves. So I'm choosing the block and take the grip, and as you can see, it remains always on the middle of the base of the column. Okay, now moving on, we're going to the foundation and we want to stretch it downwards. We're going to the stretch, choose foundation, choose the active head. We must be careful, we want to take under this symbol the area, okay? And choose the objects. Even if it's outside the area, if it's pinched, it's still going to move along with the stretch objects. And also this part of the drawing. But we are now coming back and we want to include this line also in its entirety. So it's a great occasion to show you how we can do that. We're pinching the action again, and we're just going to take this time the grip defining one corner of the area, extended. So now the whole line is inside, and check again with double click, action, modify, hit enter. The line is highlighted. It was already attached to the action but was not in its entirety inside the area, but now it is. Okay, so if I'm going outside, just to make sure it behaves properly, I'm taking the grip and I'm stretching. As I said, this part behaves as if it was moved, although it was a little bit outside the area. And again, I want these interrupted concrete symbols to be always in the middle. It's not compulsory, but I just want it. So for the same edge foundation parameter, I'm choosing this time the stretch action to make this, not the move. Why not the move? Because this is a polyline and I only want this part of the polyline to move with a 0.5 distance multiplier. The upper head must stay foot, okay? And the lower head was already actioned by the stretch I was already given. So again, stretch, the parameter, the active head, and only this area. Now I'm including both interrupted symbols, so I'm only pinching this object and this object, and hit OK, enter. Let's see now. These are the actions. If I'm putting here 0.5, it should go although it's downwards, it should go with a plus value always at the middle of the distance generated by the edge foundation parameter. Let's see the effect, if I was right. It already is settled in the middle. I'm stretching a little bit more the drawing, so now you clearly can see it always follows the middle of the length. Okay, so we have the levels, the height of the foundation, the base of the column. Let's go quickly through the other parameters. I want to stretch the height of the cross section just as a graphically it will show me graphically which is the correct cross section of the column. So I'm taking the stretch action, the height parameter, its active head, and I want only half of the lower half of the drawing to be included. The height parameter in itself included also in the area. Okay, so look what happens now. We have two parameters that are with a common head on X and Y direction, and they are perfectly placed one on top of the other. And although height is making its action on a Y direction downwards and base is making its action on an X axis on a plus direction, look what happens in this case because the two heads are superimposed. It's just a cool effect. I'm choosing the block, I'm deactivating ortho to show you that having the same active heads, although it shows only one of them randomly, if we click on it, you can move the drawing bidirectionally all together. So we're making the stretch of the base, but we're also obtaining the stretch of the cross section on Y direction. Of course, it's not a precise dimension to choose for the column, but it's a nice effect with various applications in other blocks. Okay, so now going back, I want to stretch the beams. So as you can see, the beams will develop downwards, and we will apply the same principles. First we will stretch the general beam, and then we'll make sure these symbols are going half the distance, and also the beam will activate the span 1 parameter, and then we shall put actions on span 1 that will activate also the beam 1. So as I said in the previous episode, when we want to stretch the beam downwards, the span automatically will be affected. Okay, it will go downwards, but also it applies also for the span to affect in its turn back the height of the beam. Although in the vast majority of the cases we will put values on the beam because it's more natural to work this way, but sometimes if you know the value of the span and of the level, you are going backwards, obtaining the height of the beam. Probably rarer cases. So let's start with the beam. Stretch, we choose the parameter, we choose the head. Now we're going in this area, and even if I'm crossing all the dimensions, I'm only choosing the height, the span dimension, the concrete lines and the active head of the span 1 parameter, the beam parameter itself, and the rest of the concrete. Hit enter, and again hit enter to reactivate the stretch action, the same parameter, the same active head, this time only the area that will include the symbols, this one and this one. Hit enter, and now we must search for it. There it is, I found it quickly, and the second stretch action will come with the distance multiplier of 0.5. Let's check it from outside. You should always check when you're constructing a block to see if it's developing correctly. Manually, yes, it follows half of the distance. So, just as I said, we can now come with a backward effect. I'm choosing stretch for the span, its active head, click, and pretty much the same area. Only these two, this part and this part. And then again stretch, the same span one, the same head, and the same symbols. And this time, yes, I just found it, the second stretch comes, of course, with 0.5. And let me do quickly the rest of the block, namely the beam 2 and span 2. Alright, almost finished. Now we must search for the actions. There is for the span, the second stretch comes with 0.5, and we must search for the beam 2 set of actions. No, this belongs to the foundation. This is level 1, this is level 2. Yeah, well, I'll have to save it and re-enter it. As I said, sometimes the actions are lost. It's a pain in the ass to work like this, but this version of AutoCAD, let's say, I just found it, okay, has this annoying, very annoying glitch. Okay, cool. Save again. So we choose now the block, and we see we have almost all the parameters active. What is left is the level and number and type of columns, so let's put this as well. Level, of course, it refers to the value of the base of the column. Here is the object, it's a line with the parameter attached to it. It has no grips visible because as I said in episode number 2, I only want to put the value directly from the parameters tab. So I'm taking the stretch, hit level parameter, choose the second active head, make a area that will take partially the line and the parameter, choose it, hit enter, and now from outside, if I'm changing this parameter, this value will change. And also for the type, and by type it refers to the type of the column as something, and the number of the same type that will appear in the project, the total number of elements, is the same basic stretch action for the type. And also for the number. Now let's see from outside, close and save the changes. So now if I'm coming here closely, I'm pinching the block from somewhere, I'm going to the level, and I already have the minus in front, and I will just go and say 0.1 meters, meaning that I have the column with the concrete starting from minus 10 centimeters below the finishing of the building. I'm hitting regen several times because AutoCAD doesn't regenerate all at once all the fields, and because I've stretched already some of the building, also the levels are now with the values regenerated. And just make sure that this happens. Okay, let's make things interesting. I'm choosing the block and I'm saying the base it's 50. Just hitting click, it goes to the next value. The height of the cross section is 70 centimeters. The first level is 450 centimeters. The second level is 550. Now the first beam with a depth of 70 centimeters, the second one with 60 centimeters. As you see the drawing, it's actively changing. We can skip span 1 and span 2 because they are derived from the level minus the height of the beam. So since we already change parametrically lev 1 and lev 2 and beam 1 and beam 2, the span 1 and span 2 are only resulting. So now I'm moving directly to the harsh foundation. I want 80 centimeters. Okay, and let's see here. I want to be 7 pieces of type number 3. Escape and hit regen at least 2, if not 3 times. And everything is changed. Now the cross section is 50 by 70. S3 type of a column, 7 pieces in total. I've put 0.1 the first level, so because the depth of the foundation is 80, it adjusted to minus 0.9. Then I have the first level of 450 in height, so minus 0.1 plus 450 will result in plus 440, and the next level is 550, so 440 plus 550, it will result in 9.9 with a plus. So there you go, you've just finished your first dynamic block representing an elevation of the column. So let's start again. If I'm bringing a new instance, I'm hitting I key plus enter and I'm inserting the block that is named 2 niv. In English would be 2 levels, 2 lev. Hit OK. It brings me a fresh instance, which is still not with new parameters. These are the definition values, and again I'm constructing, let's say 60 by 60, 375, 440, 60 the first beam, 60 the second beam, span 1 and span 2 are resulting, 100 for the depth of the foundation. The level is, let's say, 0.25 this time, 7 numbers of S2 type, escape since the last value was finished, hit regen, I make it 3 times. So the first level is 0.25, minus 1 meter is minus 125, plus 375 is plus 350, and plus 450 it's, no, let's see, yeah, it's correct, it's 8. And the cross section as a preview in the drawing, 60 by 60. Of course, the values were taken into the title, 60 by 60, S2 type with 7 pieces. So once again, a new elevation constructed in a matter of seconds. Okay, so with this we finish this chapter of constructing the elevation, starting from basic elements, turning them into a static block, and then turning the static block into a dynamic one by putting parameters and then adding action to those parameters. Okay, so for the next episode we will dive in more complicated things. We will use our first Lisp, namely the one that will construct the body of stirrups on this column. We'll dive in far more complicated constructed blocks, but with the same basic principles, using a lot of linear parameters with a lot of stretch or move actions. So I hope this helps. Share with your friends this video, save it, follow the channel. As I promised, I will show you interesting things, starting from a basic AutoCAD. We shall construct one that is very clever, working with dynamic blocks and Lisps, and optimizing your working time, and keep a clear mind at the end of a working day. So Thank you for watching, and till next time, take care.